Welcome to the Halo Effect, hospitality stories with Ashleigh and Michael Donald. Hospitality isn't just our profession, it's our passion. With decades of experience and countless stories to share, we've navigated the highs and lows of this dynamic industry, not just as professionals, but as a husband and wife team tackling the challenges of business and life together. This podcast is your invitation to step behind the curtain of the hospitality world. We'll share real experiences, lessons learned, and the moments that have shaped our journey, offering inspiration and insights for anyone walking a similar path. Whether you're just starting out or have years under your belt, we're here to remind you that every challenge is an opportunity and every story has the power to inspire. Hello and welcome to the Halo Effect Hospitality Stories with Ashleigh and Michael Donald. Today we are going to be talking about guest service versus guest experience. So really looking at that distinction between the two and why hotels need to get those fundamentals right.
Exactly.
Build a bit of a basis, a good base towards really wowing guests and making them feel amazing.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because I think that whole guest service terminology can be quite interchangeable, can't it, with the guest experience? But, you know, in your view, what is the difference between guest service and guest experience?
Well, I really think the guest service is the basics, isn't it? It's your meeting expectations, delivering those basics. It's the operational side of hospitality. I think it's making sure guests are checked in on time, making sure that rooms are clean and they're in good condition, and just respond to any requests they might have efficiently and effectively and quickly. I think it's the way I always see it is it's not the wow factor, is it? It's just your basic
things
just
done
the
right.
things done right, as you expected. Perfectly average is exactly what you want. You know, just delivering those basics exactly as you want. Yes, they could be much nicer rooms and everything else, and everything around it can be different, but it's hitting your 3-star, your 4-star, or your 5-star basic expectations.
But yeah, I suppose it's you just have that expectation that the room is clean, that it's ready by 3 p.m. And I suppose that, you know, that guest service element, yes, there's those basics, but I assume that, you know, as guest expectations evolve and certain basics that we would have thought basic or you know, certain experiences that we maybe thought were wow 5 years ago are almost basics now. So I think there's
true,
that kind of, it's not a static state, is it? It's a dynamic.
Well, that's true. It does. Yeah, our expectations always change, right? And that's what we market for. That's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to change. The way the expectations of the size of a television has changed pretty dramatically in the last 20 years, hasn't it?
I still can't work them though.
No, absolutely not. But now they're kind of as wide as they were deep. They used to, the big, the huge, you'd have huge pieces of furniture in guest rooms, and now you just have a sleek widescreen on the wall, and I think that comes down. I don't think those are not guest experience. That is guest service. That is like facilities and service. It is quite basic, and those are the ones that are sort of measured by your quality assurance audits. So whether it's LQA or LRA or AA or whatever it might be, those are really looking at it. I know the Forbes Travel Guide is one that, yes, they look at all those basics, but I think they expand a little bit more into the wow factors, a little bit more into the experiential elements. I think they put a higher weighting on that, and that makes it a little bit different. But whether it's mystery shoppers or guest reviews, they all talk about the guest service experience. The guest services, and it is really important to get these right, because they do form the basis of a stay. You know, if everything goes wrong with the guest service, there's going to be a problem that needs resolving.
And it's going to affect the experience.
Exactly. It's going to have a negative negative impact. Now, the difference is the experiential elements can rescue that and they can change it, but ultimately your service experience needs to get right, and you have a great opportunity, if that's right, then to kind of add the additional bits of color to make it really special. Because negative reviews, they often talk about those operational failures. They talk about, I didn't get my room on time.
No water pressure.
The water wasn't hot. The water pressure was terrible, or whatever it is. They start like that, but then they get worse because then it comes down to the reaction and the interaction
and the response
and how people are made feel. And that, I see that element as being the guest experience element, and even with the best guest experience, you're going to really struggle to rescue that situation if everything has gone wrong. For me, the guest experience is about that emotional connection. I know we worked in Starwood when they sort of launched the emotional intelligence and
building
service
world-class
culture
brands.
and world-class brands, and that was the moment that the difference between service and experience really sort of struck home a little bit. It's something that you kind of did naturally, and you kind of understood emotional intelligence, but to sort of see it written down and helping you understand trip personas and different kind of personalities that maybe you weren't as used to adapting your service experience to.
And it was trip personas, personality traits. There was, your 4 quadrants of not just the guest that was in front of you, but it was also your team members as well. So it was building effective teams internally as much as developing effective service. But you're right. I think that that era of Starwood hotels and resorts, which has now almost come full circle, hasn't it? I think with Starwood hotels relaunching into the market. But for me, they were absolute leaders in what it meant to be an exceptional brand, as you mentioned, service culture, understanding that emotional connection, and how you could connect on a much deeper level with your guests to create loyalty beyond reason.
Yeah, loyalty beyond reason. I remember the other quote I remember is that they'll never remember exactly what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. Yeah, isn't it? And I think that really is the difference between the two. And so we always ask when we're hiring employees, we always ask, tell us about a time where you went beyond expectations for a guest, and that is, we're always asking the question about how comfortable people are with that offering that guest experience element, isn't it? It's really trying to find team members who can do that on a consistent basis, who have that kind of natural ability to kind of listen to people, make them feel special, make them feel that they really do belong. And it's a much harder thing to measure
and to train for.
Yeah, it is. It's because it is based on perception, isn't it? Like different people perceive different things depending on their personalities. But you do see it in reviews, and I sort of hinted at it a little bit earlier. You do see people talk about how things went wrong, whether it was in the restaurant or whether it was in the room or whether it was the check-in, and often I would see a review come in, and then whoever's in charge, hotel manager or whoever it might be, starts going through, pulling all the information together and saying, well, they complain about their room isn't ready, but they checked in at 3:00 or at 2:30, and check-in isn't until 3:00. Okay, tick, we've won that one. And then they look at something else and they say, oh, well, they complained about this, and then say, well, actually, technically that isn't an issue because we did this right and we did this right. But all these things that have gone wrong are just building up to a guest perception that no matter what evidence you have to the contrary is their truth.
Yeah.
And you see so many reviews that get replied to by hotel owners.
And very emotional.
Emotional responses. This is all a lie. It's not true. They did this. They did that.
Yeah.
And while that is incredibly entertaining and it is incredibly tempting, I would imagine as well to reply like that, it's where the guest experience sort of comes in, and that perception of truth and the perception of the stay. Because yes, the room might have been ready on time, but maybe they arrived with family in the morning and were told that we'll have the room ready in an hour, go and have lunch, come straight back, and then they come straight back and then it's not ready.
Yeah,
that changes the arrival time. The arrival time then should have been when they said the room would be ready, because what they might have done instead is they might have left their luggage, gone out for the day and come back,
and not been waiting.
Choices have been made based on what they've been told, and it is important that when we're telling people in that situation, giving them information, giving them choices to make, that we are really thinking about them rather than us.
Yeah,
and if we say
that empathy,
come back after 3:00, your room will definitely be ready, and they're on the early shift, and it's going to be the late shift that has to deal with that later. But if you also know that they have a very particular request for connecting rooms on the same floor with their family, and that room isn't actually even checking out until 3:00, then there needs a little bit more managing of that situation. You really need to understand that actually that room's not going to be ready at 3:00 as their check-in time. If they want to get the requests that they specifically have, it's going to take a little bit longer. And understanding that is crucial to getting both the service and the experience element right.
Yeah.
But in that situation, you could have a situation where you could have the service kind of drop slightly because they're not getting what they wanted, but because they've been given choices and
the service recovery
to make other decisions, even proactively, that really makes everything better, doesn't it?
And I think it's important to have that level of empowerment with your team, so they know what service recovery measures they can put into place very quickly to turn a situation around, is to have that transparency of communication, as you say, between the different departments. Or perhaps, you put a rush on the room with housekeeping, but actually they're dealing with, 10 others ahead of that. And I think, just managing that expectation, clear communication, getting as much information in advance of the guest stay, so you kind of understand their trip persona a little bit more. If they're traveling with children and they're just off a transatlantic flight, it's going to be maybe a different, they're going to have different needs to maybe someone that's just calling in after a business trip and just wants to quick, he's checked in on his app and he's way up to his room, or, I think just different needs for different stays. But I think with, the whole review replying, I think as much as you can deal with on property before it even gets to a review is obviously like the holy grail, and taking those key moments to interact with guests. So often, when guests are checking in, you've travelled, you're a bit stressed, you've got all of your paperwork, it's just a bit, you're just sometimes not in the right frame of mind to get that information that's useful for you to then personalize that stay. But it's often, an anecdote at breakfast or, evening drinks that you're, it can interact with a guest and they might just drop in a little bit of information. It's an anniversary, it's their child's first time to play golf or something like that can spark something that you can then, create a surprise and delight moment, whether it's an amenity in their room, a little voucher to do something, experience at their hotel, or something that maybe the concierge could organise for them to experience in the local area. So I think thinking of those things, but I think inspiring and empowering your team to feel confident to do that and to deliver that, I think it is key, and that has to be built into the foundation of how you run your business. I think ultimately,
and I think 5-star hotels do that particularly well, and I think that's kind of the biggest differentiation between 4 and 5-star is that there's a few more people around, employee wise, and there's a little bit more time to take those extra steps. Like I remember in Turnberry, where a family, you mentioned the golf thing, but I remember a family coming along and I think the kids wanted to play golf, but they had no idea what was happening. And normally what would happen is the concierge would just hand them a couple of like a putter and a wedge, and they would make their way down to the little chip and putt area down at the front of the hotel, and they would probably just cut up the fairway and cut up the green and make an absolute mess and not enjoy it at all. But I remember it was just one of those days where you're kind of like, well, I have, I'm about to go on my lunch break. It's kind of, I probably certainly have 15 minutes I can spend down here. And just went down with the kids and showed them a few golf shots and what they want to aim at. And it didn't take much. It wasn't a lot of effort. And left them to it. But by all accounts, they had an incredible time. And later that afternoon, the kids came back having bought gifts from the shop and handed them over, and it was hugely embarrassing. I just went for a bit of a jolly, down at the golf course instead of going for my lunch, and it was a pleasure to do. But those kind of things can really make a huge difference. I mean, yes, the concierge wouldn't have been an issue with the service they offered. Yeah. Because they probably with a smile said, here you go. And they would have been very happy, and not enjoying the golf game would have come down to them just thinking that they weren't made for golf. But I never know. They might be members of golf clubs now. Indeed. They might see
them on the tour.
Might be on tour. Might be doing that kind of thing. But those kind of differences really make a big difference to someone's stay. But you talk about the reviews beforehand and proactively managing those reviews, but also it's kind of from a marketing perspective, what you actually see on those review platforms of other people's experiences has a huge impact on how you feel about even making the choice of booking that hotel as well,
and ultimately, like that's a great point. I think guest experience, we're talking about more, I would say, operational and on-property experiences, but actually that guest experience and that perception is made so early now. It's looking at other review scores, it's checking out their social pages, it's, signing up to their newsletters and seeing the content. But I think, that sort of crowdsourcing other people's opinions and experiences really informs your perceived guest experience and what you'll
and the room was ready on time isn't going to inspire you to book a holiday.
No, exactly. Place, it's not a driver of a decision, is it? No,
and it's where the descriptive element, the sort of the free typing element of a guest review becomes so crucial, because you have the tick boxes where it's a 1 to 10. But sometimes people accidentally put 1 as the high score and 10 as the low score. I've noticed that one as well. But for whatever it might be, they put the score in and your average score. That's one thing. But actually, it's when people start talking about the experiences, that's where you can really get some insights, and you can get a much better feel for how the person really felt and was made to feel.
What their actual experience
could be the difference between making the booking or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, how do you train for your team to build those emotional connections with guests, with their team members? How do you nurture that in a busy hospitality operation?
It's tough, isn't it? I mean, so much of it comes down to recruitment, doesn't it? Like you do want to obviously make sure that you find people who are open to learning or have that really natural people skills, depending on the role they're applying for, certainly. But I've always said empowerment is the most crucial thing in there. Yes, you can train about using the guest name X number of times, calling them by that surname, offering additional services, never say no without offering alternatives. Those sort of basic sort of training things for guest experiences, but ultimately empowering them to make decisions and and take some responsibility for what they do. I think
ownership and initiative
is really important. And if you can find a way of, because you have to train, you have to train, but you need to then review and do and do sort of mock trainings and run throughs with your team as well, role plays, etc.
Really helpful.
Just to ensure that everyone on your team feels comfortable in a real life scenario, because just telling people what to do isn't going to work. You need to make sure that it has actually
they have the tools and
come
feel
through. And if you are in that situation and you can spend a bit of time with your team members, you'll get a very good feeling for what situations they feel comfortable in, what situations they don't feel comfortable in. And if they don't feel comfortable and they don't feel empowered to speak up and say they don't feel comfortable, or empowered to speak up and make sure someone has an incredible stay, then they're not going to be able to offer great experiences for guests.
Yeah, it's good point. And I think and another thing that just springs to mind is that, we often do case studies for, showcasing the work that we've done. And I suppose in a similar way, actually celebrating the stories of team members that have delivered great service, whether that's through your internal communications or awards of recognition that you have internally, and that storytelling around, this, guest had this amazing experience and this team member did X, Y, and Z and took it upon themselves to do this. It creates, a sort of talent pool of knowledge that helps them maybe to be inspired to do and think of things for other guests that they're in a situation with. So, but yeah, I do think it's such a dynamic area, and I do think guest expectations are certain perceptions are sort of pre-laid prior to their stay. I think expectations change and evolve all of the time as well, and I think that emotional intelligence of really connecting and having that empathy is that key differentiator, as you say, which isn't easy to necessarily train for, but I think as you say, that often people will have that innate sort of sense of providing that experience, and you're there just to help to maybe nurture and provide a framework and a supportive structure to help them to really flourish in their roles.
I also see that sort of those guest experience skills as being almost like a safety net as well. If something goes wrong with the service experience, it's a sort of a safety net. With so many elements of the service experience now automated and with AI, how can we build in those safety nets? What do you? So we work a lot now with sort of email marketing, social media. A lot of that is built to sort of proactively encourage guests to come and visit us and
get them in the welcome funnel,
and then get them in the welcome funnel, and then get them to return and build loyalty and build retention. Those emails really need to be sort of designed in such a way that you are doing everything in one.
Yeah, and I think it's having a really sort of omni-channel focus. So I think email is one. I think in certain situations, not too intrusive, having, whether it's through WhatsApp or sort of messaging. I think looking at how people are searching online and building that sort of holistic 360 view of that specific guest and their journey and their interests and things that inspire them, generally speaking, so you can tap into at a much more hyper-personalized level. And I think, there's amazing technology out there, and it does blow my mind sometimes how the use of AI can really, sift through vast amounts of data to allow you to really pinpoint and personalize. I think in reality, when you see busy hotel operations, and I think sometimes the application of those technologies can sometimes be a barrier just because it's moving so quickly and it can be a bit overwhelming. So I think sometimes that there's the technology is out there to solve a lot of this and to enhance a lot of what we do. I think sometimes it's going back to the service and experience, it's getting the basics right, and that basics sometimes is, you know, what systems do we have, the data, how you know, authentic and correct is it? You know, what are we actually trying to do to nurture and build this retention and loyalty? So, I do see the technology and automation piece as a really effective tool when it's done well. And I think there's some fantastic examples of, you know, really pioneering use of AI and tech, which I really think will change the industry for the better in that regard, because I do think there's improvements and optimizations that can be made. But I also know in reality as hospitality professionals, we're in a people business, and that's where we make that connection and that build that emotional connection and that trust, and that the AI and the tech is just a tool to do that more effectively and efficiently. So I think it's going to be so interesting to see how this all comes together with the acceleration of AI, and I think more people being used to using these tools in their day-to-day lives. But I think there's quite a bit of refinement that needs to happen before we really see the loyalty beyond reason that's been driven from a purely data overlaid with a human kind of touch point perspective.
Yeah, I think in the meantime, I think it is really important that teams are aware that things can go wrong with technology as well.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
I know one of my pet peeves is when a room key doesn't work.
Oh my God.
There's obviously there's so many ways that can happen, but that is, you know, it's basic service. It needs to be done right. But how often you get to a lift and it doesn't work, or you get to a room and your key doesn't work.
It's so frustrating because it's just the most basic thing.
And especially if you've stayed in hotels a few times, you'll know that often you're given the excuse, oh, did you have it sitting near a magnet, or did you have it near your credit cards, or did you have it? And it's all 99%. It's because the key has been made wrong, or you've extended your stay and they didn't extend the key, or they're trying to, your credit card has declined and now they want you to come to the desk so that they can get another authorization off your credit card. There's so many different reasons that might happen, but your teams need to show empathy in that situation. If they don't show empathy in that situation, people are going to get really, really annoyed.
Yeah.
And then that's not going to really work at all. But I think ultimately, you know, guest service is your foundation. It's your
building blocks.
It's building blocks, definitely. It has to be reliable. It has to be efficient. That's the benefit of it. It needs to work by itself, as automated as it possibly can. And then your guest experience is the thing that makes the stay amazing. It is the differentiation between a very average or bad stay and an average or amazing stay. And it creates that emotional loyalty. It is what builds the loyalty beyond reason, and we know that's what we really need to have in hospitality. You want retention. You want to make sure that people are coming back over and over again.
Absolutely.
You're not going to build a strong,
brand.
sustainable business with having one person, everyone stay once. You need people to come and stay multiple times, and there is no doubt that you can have mistakes in the service area, and they can be rectified in the experience area. But you can't really have mistakes in the experience area and they get rectified by the service area.
No, absolutely.
So you absolutely have to have the experience bang on. And then that's going to work, but it's hard to do. But it's worth doing.
It's worth if it was easy, then everyone would do it. You wouldn't have a USP. So
Thank you for listening to The Halo Effect, Hospitality Stories with Ashleigh and Michael Donald. We hope today's episode has offered some insights and encouragement to anyone navigating the world of hospitality or entrepreneurship. We'd love to hear from you. If you have a question, want to suggest a topic, or interested in just joining us as a guest, you'll find our contact details in the show notes. Don't forget to follow, like, or subscribe to The Halo Effect on your favourite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Until next time, thank you, and we can't wait to welcome you back for more stories and inspiration.